So how do you poison what already is? All the Mormons go to church next door and just be like, wow, we're on wildly different planes right now. No predator lying in wait. It had simply been a mutiny of stomachs, a stubborn motion of brain and body, retching their limits overboard.
Our second poem goes by the name of Amanda. Who here knows Amanda? Wow, Amanda. Wow. Well, I'm going to introduce her anyways. I don't care if you know her. So, when I first found Amanda online through the social media, it's like the interwebs. It's amazing. People attack it, but it does things. It's really cool. So, she had a chapbook come out. Oh, I'm sorry. She had a chapbook come out. And then, like a couple weeks later, she said, oh my gosh, I have a full length coming out. She has a full length coming out. And then she's like, oh my gosh, I'm having a baby. And then she's like, I'm also married to Chris. Yeah, come on. It's Christmas. So I'm very excited. So one of our missions at the Verses is we're really interested in underrepresented voices, and something that I really am happy that we're able to kind of dedicate the evening towards is just talking about alcoholism, because this is probably one of like the biggest cancers in society that's like publicly accepted in a lot of ways, you know. Most likely, if you're in this room, you know someone that is going or has gone through it, myself included. So I'm really happy that we're able to take tonight and dedicate it towards that aim. So without further ado, I bring to the stage Amanda.
I made the mistake of going after Chris. That was awesome. So one more time, give it up for him. Thank you. My collection that's coming out is called Addiction is a Sweet Dark Room. Very telling what it's about. My poems tend to be a little more self-indulgent because my mission ever since I got it together and got sober was I'm going to write about this, and those of you who know me know I'm not shy, and so I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to be loud about it. So this is kind of my way of doing that. And so I'm going to read you a collection of poems. Some are already in my chapbook, which is called They Drink with the Sun, but all of these will be contained in my upcoming collection that comes out at the end of next month. All right. First poem is called Grip Strength. My mom says I wouldn't let her feed me. My small hands clamoring for bottles as soon as they knew how to grip. I like to think this is a sign of my strength, my independence, my go-getter attitude as the kind of person whose house is a museum of art and foresight. But alas, there is no metaphor here. Sometimes it's just as literal as your hands always needing something to hold. And for me, it's always been a bottle. First one. I like when Chris mentioned when booze was first created, when we can track it back into history, because I found myself going down that path too, except I was thinking about pirates, because you always get the association of good old drunk pirates, and it was kind of healthy, right? Because you're like preventing scurvy or whatever that argument was. So I read a few stories, and I enjoyed this one about Blackbeard and his crew, and it made me laugh because they found a bunch of like wine on one of their expeditions, and they were worried about drinking it because it might be poisoned. And I'm like, it's alcohol. It is poison. So I decided to kind of play with this concept. It's called The Carousers Curse, and the quote at the top from Blackbeard is, "Such a day, rum all out, our company somewhat sober, a damned confusion among us. Consider the privateer's hands, salt-wretched and crusted, clenching a stein of morale, tonguing the word tankard, once defined as a creaking wooden vessel, now means wooden drinking vessel. A word modified by habit, like saying, I can't drink, but I can drink. I just can't drink what's implied here. And even sometimes alcohol is the smart choice. A jigger a day keeps the doctor away, keeps the thoughts at bay, keeps the inhuman horrors of withdrawal delayed. Yo ho, what a bottle of fun. Rapacity was the word used to describe the sight of a pirate crew chugging over a dozen found jars of wine they all claimed to be poisoned. Poisoned. Poison being any chemical substance that is harmful or lethal to living creatures. So how do you poison what already is? How do you tell yourself this one kind of ichor is safe to swallow? Perhaps if you're already dead inside, you've grown a kind of resistance, not tolerance, a kind of antidote tucked inside your ribcage that swills the sting for you. But the funny thing is, there had been no poison, no malice swimming in those jugs, no predator lying in wait. It had simply been a mutiny of stomachs, a stubborn motion of brain and body, retching their limits overboard. Am I too close? I try to intersperse some of the shorter ones with the longer ones, so here's another short one. I talk fast anyway, so they'll go kind of fast. This one is called 17. I am 17 and still think my stuffed animals have feelings. If I told you I envied the poor kids for their freedom, would you judge me? Highlighted hair, Hollister hoodie, and a hovering curfew. I am privileged with a manufacturing defect, built of stubborn brick. Ignore my starving brain, its dopamine ghosts. I am 17 and about to create my own freedom with abandon. I am 17 and about to build my own prison with bottles. I am 17 and years away from meeting myself again. For some reason, I have a couple poems that have to do with horses, but there's very specific reasons. This one is called Lucifer, and for those of you who don't know, there is a giant blue demonic-looking statue that sits outside Denver International. It's huge blue glowing red eyes, and it's known because it actually killed its creator, to boot. So we went out to Colorado this summer, and I had some reflections, because the last time I had been out there, I had just gotten out of the hospital and was supposed to be flying out for what I learned later was an intervention, but I missed my flight because I passed out in the airport. So, it all comes back together. So this is Lucifer. The brawny cobalt archangel guards Pena Boulevard, and his naked, exposed wire veins had seemed much larger when I first arrived in Denver for a failed intervention. If you had told me that the statue was 100 feet tall instead of 30, I would have believed you, because that is the size I imagined him to be when I heard he killed his creator. It had not been the body committing patricide. It had only been the head, cranium cutting through Luis Jimenez's leg, a too heavy mind lashing out at its unsolicited existence. As though the Mustang had been curbing a binge, family and friends rushed to clean up what was left, sending fragmented fiberglass limbs off to California to be rehabilitated. That is, to be put together, assembled whole, either finally or again. Time passes and he returns, intact and standing, not far from where he had once laid helplessly in a pile of his own regret. Now he flexes an aggressive solitary stampede into the west, spending his time scanning the rocky embankments before him and below him, forever charging towards the endless need to leave a place in order to return. Thank you. This is one of my more fun, snarkier poems. I got a few of those woven throughout. My biggest burden sits atop my skin in the form of connotation. Tell me you do not picture a checkbook full of criminal charges or a lost ledger of friends when you hear sober out of any mouth. I am the boogeyman in school auditoriums, a broken display of what not to be before prom. I never killed anyone, but the scale still tips towards death. These are the things I can't put on a resume. To start a habit takes 21 days. To stop one takes a lifetime. I am the brass-sleeved horse hanger my addiction loves to spin. I promise I've been humbled, and I'm desperate to show you how good it feels to have beaten this, how bad it feels to have done it to myself, how scary it is to know I'm one drink away from complete collapse, and how certain I am when I tell you I did not suddenly decide I wanted to get better, but that I suddenly did. This one's about horse therapy, which they do make you go to in rehab, just so you know. And if your insurance is being annoying, they try to make you go twice, and you say, no, I'm not going, I'm here to change, but not that much. But I figured I'd make something good out of it. So this is called Let Us Have the Day. At first, I thought horse therapy was a joke, but I think I get it now. The hay-splintered roof mirroring the crunchy ground beneath our feet, all tattered, but holding, not unlike us. A man my age repels from the horses like a magnet, always standing at the farthest point away, but unable to escape. The rest of us laugh, but chew on the cud of our thanks. We are not also scared of the beast. We are to brush, not ride. The farm beyond the barn expands the way Ohio always does, an expansive nothingness filled with the air of having to create your own existence. All open, except for straying. Even the bathroom reminds us we are nowhere. Exposed skull ceiling, sunlight intruding where we pee, but we have become accustomed to our intimacies being watched. They say we gave up our right to shyness when we took our first drink. The smell of hand sanitizer cuts through that of the manure as I scrub my knuckles, and I cannot stop thinking about that man's bladder, hoping it is empty and as strong as the buckskin I brush, and praying for his dehydration so that he may not face another temptation that has leaked in from the outside world. Here, it sits like a promise on a sink, and tomorrow it will fill the aisles of our lives. But just for today, let us stay inside the fence and try to remember how to roam without a roof. I need to stay away from this. Keep breathing into it. I'm loud enough without it, so I'm just trying to stop breathing into it. This was actually one of my first poems. It's a prose poem, and one of the first I got published too. So I kind of looked at oh, that's an old poem, and then I read it again. I'm like, it's still a good poem. Just because it's older doesn't make it bad. So it's kind of a fun one to read. It's called Delirium Tremens. Those of you who aren't familiar with the delirium tremens, it's a super fun side effect of severe withdrawal from alcohol, where you have auditory and visual hallucinations, full-on tonic-clonic seizures like I had at work in front of children, which is great, and a whole slew of other miserable things that they don't tell you, right? When you see PSAs, it's always about don't drink and drive, which you shouldn't, which I was good about. But there's all these other just terrible things that just come with addiction that you just can't prepare for. It just sucks. So here it is. Instead of flying, wailing sparks of windshield and flashing lights littering the street, let me show you alcoholism's true face, a darkened vignette behind the eyes, encompassing only the faintest candlelight thought left. The crumbs of souls seeking the spirits they can't buy before the sun. I no longer sleep or wake. Or listen to the echoes of your mother and coworkers, their inoculation, hallucinations while you kill time between days, or while tightroping the hours, fogging up your own glasses, the humidity of another defeated day, veiled within the trembling tomb of a body. Know that the thoughts you do not think now will return with a vengeance, but only if you survive the seizure, convulsing on grass instead of on the road. You're one of the lucky ones, you know. Look at my skin. I'm caught between self-digestion and putrefaction. See the bloating and the tearing and the decomposing, all while being alive, technically. And then calmly, on the day you decide you don't want to die, place your hand anywhere on my body and see that I do not feel human because poison doesn't have a face. Let's get that one. This is a good old list poem. I think what some people try to ignore, and I prefer not to, is it's easy to romanticize the addiction and just demonize it. But the truth is there were things I enjoyed or I wouldn't have been doing it. Does that mean they're good or they're worth it? No, but I like to look at it back in the face and be like, yeah, I do miss these things, but I can stand here and tell you now, they're not worth it. Not more than anything I have now. So it's called It Had to Be Worth It. I miss the thrill of a night not over. I miss the bloodstains and loose tongues. I miss how each of us were peeled bare in our truths, all raw with thick, wet sog. I miss the black burnt bread in the oven as coarse sleep hums on the couch. I miss the girls in the bar bathrooms and the sink talks with my own blurry ghost. I miss how no song ever got stale. I miss the fields of laughs. I miss how being drunk made football games a rapturous concert, and I, their biggest fan, screaming with the men who would check every ballot box opposite of mine. I miss its shield during Thanksgiving, where everyone gives thanks by scoffing off social stigmas never once applied to their names. I even miss the rag clean of rugs, licked by red wine, while my friend kisses my partner in another room. I miss the maps cuts become, and the broken barriers that I stepped over into new lovers. I miss the way the sky pressed my skin to my skull and promised me with kindergarten exuberance that tomorrow I could still feel this good. Most of all, I miss the crack of a new bottle as it opened against my palm in the aftermath of any moment. I gotta go faster. This is a short little one where my chapbook gets its namesake. It's called They Drink with the Sun. You see only the stumbling, not the rippling of the ground. You see haunted hands wavering with self-inflicted ghosts. You see the outstretched arm pulling pain against a bloated chest like a broken bird. They are not martyrs, but they are trying, bumbling toddlers relearning what no looks like on someone they love, learning how to slip excuses into hair. You cannot see the self-loathing canvassing the mirror they dip their eyes into. You brush your teeth and hum as they drink with the sun. In my collection, there's 5 series of these short little poems called like The Concordance of Addiction and something. And this one is The Concordance of Addiction and Church, because in my worst years, I was out in Salt Lake City in my own apartment, and I remember just waking up hungover and miserable, and then watching all the Mormons go to church next door and just be like, wow, we're on wildly different planes right now, and just the kind of guilt that comes with that. So today I wear my Sunday best, a single contact, a wet, missing shirt, praying to the sun as though today's the only day I can ask forgiveness, seeking bedridden penance while kids in white line up for church next door, unknowing the need for relief is often the burden of sin. This is another one kind of on the thought of religion in church and playing with the idea of fruit. You'll see a lot of sugar and fruit themes in my writing with this, but just the idea of like, what if Adam had or Eve, I guess, if they had taken it and it was fermented? What if they got drunk in the garden? Just kind of the concept of how easy it is to happen. So it's called Paradise. Into a carafe, God birthed the Garden of Eden, viridescent pot of sprouting idealism, where to be in paradise is to be confined, and to not know the line between being enclosed and encaged is freedom itself. Had the fruit not been eaten, and instead had fallen and been left to rot, could it have been Adam who scooped the fruit, put its sweet acid to his lips like a soothing balm, and sipped the volatile nectar of brain-slowing citrus? Had he gotten drunk on that fruit, would he have seen more or less evil? Or would the drink have led him deeper into the garden than the fruit had? And is there a reason Jesus boasts so much of his blood wine veins? These are not the questions we're supposed to ask in school or church, in AA, of each other. But every time I think of punishment, or knowing, or temperance, I think of how Eve's sin vines itself up the trunk of our lives now, how curiosity is seen as good, unless it is seen as evil, how blame is put on our nature until we crack the bark of our own forests and give up the paradises we never had, in exchange for momentary relief of budding choice and blank thought. These are two little baby palms that go together, because I'm sure many of you have heard the phrase, 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough. So 1 is too many. I've never been good at math, but now I understand exponents. 1 becomes 2 becomes 10 years. And this is the second one, 1,000 is never enough. The world is built on insatiability, but is it greed to be curious for an escape? I suppose it depends where you go and why. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna skip those. A couple of short ones, and then I'll start wrapping it up here. This is just a short little one that had me kind of curious, like with rotten fruit, can you still take those seeds and plant them? Because, I don't know, interesting, like you think of it rotting, let's see. It's called salvage. Reflecting on my past has me searching. Can you still harvest seeds from rotten fruit? The answer is yes. The riper, the better. This is a fun one, kind of largely about anxiety and like when the worst thing happens, kind of like hitting a rock bottom. It feels better than just anticipating the fall and all the terrible things that could happen. Like I'd rather just the bad thing happen. There's kind of a relief to just knowing the certainty of the bad thing happening and knowing you have to deal with it. And it was published in London Magazine, which was like really shocking to me, and that's one I definitely brag about. It's called Welcome Wagon. When the apocalypse arrives at my door, I fling it wide and let my anxiety outside without a leash and greet the welcome wagon before me. Full-armed reapers cradling breads baked with the stench of death and pastries filled with the hollowness that stolen purpose leaves. All wrapped in a cute little bow, sewn of promises that nothing will ever go wrong again because it can't. And so I invite them inside with that finally Gatsby kind of smile, and they ask me why my spirits are so high at the end. And I chew while I talk and ignore crumbs on the floor, and I say it's because there is nothing left for me to fear, because there is nothing left to imagine, nothing left to picture in my head during gaps of sleep, nothing that isn't sitting here, in front of me now, in my kitchen, eating off my plates. And I will end with this one. It's called I Want to Be Unfinished. I want to be able to start a fire and walk away. I want the strength to sleep in a half-made bed. I want 1,000 screaming kettles to perform a concert for me without my asking. I want tattoos of half-peeled stickers inside my throat and for every swallow to feel like honey. I want to put the pause button out of its misery with my teeth and drive 2,000 miles west and hoist a cinder block atop my gas pedal and step out onto the road barefoot. I want the power of tasting a drink and setting it down. I want to start a thought and then stop and then watch. Thank you.